Welcome to The Story. I'm Tim Gordon in for Pat Doris tonight, and we start with a look at Multnomah County's ambulance crisis, an issue we've been following for 2 years at this point. The stalemate between the ambulance provider, AMR, and the county continues, and new data shows the crisis is far from solved. It's our big story tonight. Well, it's been a month or two since our last update on the issue. Long wait times for people calling 911, late ambulance arrivals, and a lack of paramedics. In February, leaders with the county and AMR called this a crisis that needs immediate attention. So what's happened in the last 3 months since that call to action? Investigative reporter Evan Watson has a story.
Let's start with the data, and specifically level 0 calls. Those are the worst case scenarios when someone calls 911 and there just isn't an ambulance crew available to respond. To start this year in January, it was very bad.
Dispatch data shows AMR ambulance crews were unavailable to immediately respond to more than 2,800 emergency calls in January. That's far and away the worst month on record. Dispatchers waited more than 30 minutes on average just to assign an ambulance crew to a level 0 call, more than triple the average time of most other months. And that ambulance crew still needed to drive to the emergency after that.
AMR says there is a clear explanation for this: the January ice storm. The company says the data is skewed because of the cold temps and winter storm that iced over the Portland area for about 12 days in the middle of the month. So if January was a one-off, we should see improvements in the months after that, right? Well, fortunately, we do.
Compared to the same months last year, the data shows clear improvements in the number of level 0 incidents. Dispatchers tracked roughly half as many cases and lower average ambulance assignment times, down to about 7 minutes per case. Still, that's more than 1,800 level 0 calls in a 3-month span, which is still concerning and dangerous. An AMR spokesperson says the data is further evidence that the county needs to switch staffing models.
In a statement, AMR saying the improvement shown for February, March, and April is encouraging, but we adamantly believe the current measures taken will not produce conditions that meet contract standards, and a total system overhaul is necessary to eliminate level 0 events from our system. The county and AMR have consistently disagreed on how to address the shortage of paramedics. The county requires 2 paramedics per ambulance, and AMR wants to pair a paramedic with an EMT. We've covered that squabble and related fines at length here on The Story. Both sides admit this is an urgent problem. Well, we've covered it for a year and a half now, so where's the urgency? AMR and Multnomah County are locked in mediation sessions to try and resolve their differences over how to improve ambulance service within the county. They had one on April 18th, and they had one today. These are closed sessions described by the county as being good at promoting, quote, dialogue and compromise. Multnomah County Chair Jessica Vega-Peterson says she's committed to reaching a settlement with AMR that guarantees better response times, accountability, and service. She also gave a statement that could be interpreted as a vague threat towards AMR's contract with the county, saying, I'm also looking toward the bigger picture as we reevaluate our ambulance service plan to make sure we have the tools at our disposal to serve this community. County data shows AMR reported its best 3-month stretch of paramedic hiring from February to April, with a net gain of 10 paramedics. But the company says it's still severely short-staffed. AMR is providing full scholarships to paramedic school, some you can see here, but says they're still more than a year away from seeing meaningful impacts from these efforts. So what do you think about all this? Are you frustrated at the slow pace of negotiations, letting this ambulance response time issue fester without a clear plan to fix it? Or are you encouraged by the recent data? Let us know. Email the story at kgw.com or call and leave us a voicemail, 503-226-5090.
And thanks to Evan for that. Well, all week we've been hearing from people who received confusing letters from the city of Portland. The letters claim residents didn't pay a pair of new taxes meant to fund homeless services and preschool, even though they did. Well, last night we told you how the city is doubling down, saying the letters are legit. Today, investigative reporter Kala Boshi brings us an update.
Local government is finally responding after a flurry of calls, emails, and complaints about demand letters claiming people owe on new taxes meant to fund homeless services and preschool, even though they'd already paid. In a joint statement, Metro, Multnomah County, and the City of Portland wrote, "Confusion about the recent notices shows we have room to improve," and we're committed to doing so. The statement comes roughly 1 week after the city of Portland mailed out nearly 12,000 letters to high-earning taxpayers about Metro's supportive housing services tax and Multnomah County's preschool for all tax. The notice of debt letters created all kinds of confusion because they didn't explain the problem and left many people waiting on hold for answers.
First time I called, there was 128 people ahead of me waiting in queue.
Mark Steinmetz was baffled after receiving the letter, claiming he owed penalties and interest on Metro's homeless services tax, even though he'd paid it in full.
There was not a question about the amount that I owed. It was just this fee and the interest owed.
After reviewing his bill, the city said it would waive the penalty, but not the interest, leaving Steinmetz even more perplexed. This whole ordeal, he said, seems like a waste of time and resources.
Guidance or not enough manpower, what the challenge is, but this is a substantial amount of money that Metro is collecting. And I think it would be different if we saw what the outcomes were, but now we're just seeing this is going to a paper hole of logistic challenges.
The city of Portland collects taxes on behalf of Multnomah County and Metro. A Metro spokesperson said, "We expect the customer service from the Revenue Office to be held to the highest standard. We'll be working with our partner to improve the way this works in the future." The voter-approved personal income taxes only apply to individuals who made more than $125,000 annually, or couples who bring in more than $200,000 combined. The city requires that most taxpayers make quarterly estimated payments, but some people didn't or underpaid, resulting in the letter demanding penalty and interest. Many of these taxpayers may be unfamiliar with quarterly estimated payments and may not have experienced underpayment fees before, the government's statement explained. Steinmetz argues it'd be a whole lot easier if people just paid once a year.
To me, I can pay it as long as I have an amount owed and I pay it on time, it should be completed.
And the money being collected is piling up. Metro's supportive housing tax was projected to bring in $250 million a year. Instead, it's wildly exceeded expectations, bringing in $850 to $900 million in the first 3 years, according to a Metro spokesperson. So why so aggressive in collecting these new taxes? The spokesperson said, "We are currently working on a review to see if there are reforms that can improve the supportive housing services program as it moves forward." Kyle Aboshi, KGW News.
Well, there are growing calls now for the superintendent of the Newberg School District to step down as the district finds itself in a huge financial crisis. Earlier this month, the school board held a meeting and learned they were nearly $4 million in the hole. It came after an independent audit of the district's budget that was presented at a special board meeting last week.
But at this time for fiscal year 23-24, I am anticipating a negative fund balance of $3,773,365 if no changes are made. And I think that's important to understand that there are things that you can do, but there is a critical timeline. You are at May 20th and your fiscal year ends June 30th.
Now, parents and teachers in the district say they were blindsided by this news. They say the district and Superintendent Stephen Phillips led them to believe the district was in a much better place financially.
There's going to need to be a cut of 20% next year. No school district in Oregon has ever had that. And they overspent the district funds by almost $11 million. And they didn't even know how to, they were telling the school board the entire year up until May 7th even, that they were going to end in the black. And that next year we'd have a beginning fund balance of $8.2 million. And they were wrong. They didn't know how to calculate the funds. It's just gross negligence.
Where was the money? How was there an $11 million swing within just a couple of days of finding out where the money went? So we're just kind of really surprised and hoping to hear where the money went and what's going to happen. What does it look like for the rest of the school year? Are there furlough days? Are we going to have to figure out childcare for any of these days that are going to be gone? Are there going to be end of the year celebrations that are going to have to get canceled? Or is that going to still continue? So it just leaves a lot up to questions when we have 3 weeks left.
Now, members of the school board also said they had no idea how this happened.
I guess I'm more curious about how we got here. with the numbers that we've been having compared to all of a sudden this. I'm confused. I think I'm not alone. I don't know if there are answers or if this is the time or place, but this is bad. This is really, really not good.
There's two things that are over $1 million, and how can we be so far off and not be aware of this before last board meeting?
An online petition is calling for Superintendent Phillips to be removed. It doesn't have any real power, but more than 1,200 people have signed it. We talked to Superintendent Phillips this week. He says he gets why parents are upset with him.
But I think it's fair to say I understand. We're in a budget crisis, and there's a lot of misunderstanding. But bottom line is people are scared and nervous about the future, and responsibility lies with me. So I think I understand it.
Now, Superintendent Phillips does not necessarily have a shining record in that role. He was a controversial pick by the former school board after they fired the last superintendent in 2021. Before Newberg, Phillips was a superintendent of the tiny Jewel School District, where he was placed on administrative leave during an investigation into the way he handled abuse claims. And before that, he was forced to resign as the deputy superintendent of the Beaverton District for sharing derogatory social media posts about immigrants. In Newberg this week, the school board released a statement saying the stunning disclosure is as much of a shock to members of the school board as it is to you. Despite frequent inquiries of the superintendent on the status of the district budget, the school board was regularly assured that any potential budget shortfall would be managed through savings from staff retirement and resignations. They went on. The school board is committed to providing ongoing, transparent communication and working with the community and skilled professionals to resolve this crisis. But when we reached out to those school board members for interviews, not a single one responded. The financial auditor told the school board that the shortfall comes from a few major areas of the budget that were overspent. The school board itself was over budget by $165,000. The superintendent's budget was over by $73,000, but the biggest deficit was in special education, which was $1.3 million over budget, and transportation services, which had nearly doubled in the past year. Well, the board said those costs went over because of student needs. With special education, the board doesn't know what kind of needs a student will have until they show up. And the people meeting those support needs are often hourly contractors. And this year, those hours were higher than expected, apparently much higher. As for transportation, the board says they'll be reviewing their contracts and invoices to find out why they went so far into the red. The district is also seeing falling enrollment. This graph shows the drop since 2012. You see students are in orange and teachers are in blue. Those two lines, well, they should be a lot closer. The auditor says there are more teachers than the district needs now. The superintendent tells us they also got a lot less money from the state than they were expecting and had budgeted for. And according to the auditor, legal fees from several lawsuits against the school board also took a toll on the budget. Longtime viewers of the story will remember the lawsuits over the district's political symbols ban that started as a ban on Pride and Black Lives Matter displays. The school board lost those lawsuits and another one for violating public meetings laws and now needs to pay legal fees. Now the board has to figure out how to make up the difference. Superintendent Phillips says cuts will be made and they'll be significant. Teachers will lose their jobs and programs will be cut. The auditor says right now the board's best option is to get a short-term loan to cover the shortfall. But some board members question whether the board's credit rating was good enough to get a loan. Earlier this week, about 24 high school students in Newberg, well, they walked out of class in protest at the budget shortfall and went to district headquarters to confront the superintendent. The district has until the end of June to figure it all out. And if you don't have a calendar nearby, June starts tomorrow. And up next on the story, a unique report from the KGW Solutions Project. Now, it's no secret Portland has a housing crisis, and as we know, climate change is moving in the wrong direction. But one developer thinks he's created a way to help both problems. Environmental reporter Kel Williams explains when the story returns. Well, the housing crisis in Portland is showing no signs of letting up as the city works to build its way out of the housing crunch. And all this is going on while climate change continues to worsen. But one developer thinks he has a solution that could help both problems at the same time. As part of KGW's Solutions Project, reporter Cale Williams and producer Alex Jensen teamed up to look at a new take on affordable housing with an environmental twist.
At the corner of 99th and Gleason in Northeast Portland, something new is taking shape.
We're standing in the 3-bedroom unit on the 4th floor at Timberview 8, which is an 8-story mass timber building.
That's Curtis Reistat, the lead developer behind the Timberview project. And his building stands out for a few reasons.
When completed, will be the tallest mass timber residence in the state of Oregon.
Not only is the building one of the biggest built from mass timber in the state, the 105 units will also be 100% affordable. Mass timber is a process where small pieces of lumber are glued together to form large structural beams, replacing the concrete and steel used in traditional construction. Mass timber buildings also help fight climate change, cutting out the hefty emissions that come with some of those other materials. Mass timber construction can have higher upfront costs, depending on timber markets, but Reistat said there are other benefits that offset those higher prices.
When you have mass timber, you need less people to assemble the actual structure.
And the buildings come together quicker.
They put half this floor up in an hour and a half.
But can a mass timber building stand up to things like fires and earthquakes? Shirley Chalupa, an engineer who consulted on the Timberview project, says yes.
The fire rating is important here because the wood is exposed.
Chalupa said the massive beams are bigger than they need to be, so the wood on the outside can burn, while the structural integrity remains intact.
As you can see, the size of the columns here is not necessarily what's required for strength, but it's built in additional wood for charring.
And because there's very little concrete, the building itself is lighter than traditional construction and more resilient to earthquakes.
The weight of the building actually cut in half. So you have a much lighter building than a building similar size and height, but using steel or concrete.
But for Reistat, the affordability component is just as important to the building's environmental benefits.
We have a problem. I'm trying to help solve the problem.
The units will range from $1,100 for a studio to $1,700 for a 3-bedroom. But to live here, residents will need to make less than 60% of median income for the area, which is about $47,000 a year for an individual or $66,000 for a family of 3. And the need for housing in Portland can't be understated. Due to population growth and underproduction, the city needs to build more than 120,000 new units of housing in the next 20 years. And more than half of that needs to be affordable. Reistat says he hopes Timberview will be a catalyst for other developers to look at innovative ways to solve the region's housing crisis.
This cause helps the environment. This cause helps people that need affordable housing. This cause helps reduce the energy use. How is that not a great investment in our society?
Cale Williams, KGW News.
Welcome back. We've done a number of stories about Washington County Civil Deputy Charles Dozay, who was shot 7 times in the line of duty. After one of our stories aired just a couple weeks ago, we heard about a woman who says Dozay had a big impact on her efforts to become a police officer. Devin Haskins shows us the unique bond created between the two when the veteran befriended the rookie.
For as long as she could remember, a dream grabbed Reagan Cook's imagination and would not let go.
I think every kid thinks that they want to be a firefighter or police officer at some point. I just never outgrew it.
She went to WSU in Pullman and graduated with a degree in criminal justice. And when it came time to take the physical fitness tests to become a police officer, she joined a gym in Washougal.
I went to the gym, started doing all these workouts, and the owner knew what I wanted to do and really helped focus on my push-up form, things like that.
It was there at that gym that she met an older man she had already seen pushing himself through hard workouts of his own.
I always noticed Chuck because he was always going 100%. I always noticed him, but I didn't know who he was.
He was Chuck Dozay, a Washington County Sheriff's deputy that was shot 7 times in the line of duty back in July.
Yeah, it was a day that I won't soon forget.
It was a month after that shooting when he met Reagan.
She just had a really bright sense about her. You know, she had bright eyes. She seemed very articulate and smart, you know, and she knew what she wanted to do.
And when she first met him, nerves set in.
I kind of froze up. I didn't know what to say. And then I asked if he had any advice, and he said, "Don't get shot, it hurts." And I kind of thought that was going to be it. And pretty much every day after that, when I was at the gym, he was there.
Over the next several months, a friendship developed. He became her mentor.
He's been a pretty big part of my life for the last 6 months. Just to be that person that I can reach out to and look up to.
In November, Reagan started working for Vancouver Police and went to the academy a couple months later. And after 4 months of lessons and training,
Hey, Officer Cook, how are you?
it was time to graduate.
Congratulations. See you out there. Wow, that's so amazing.
Thank you for joining us today, and welcome to the graduation of Basic Law Enforcement Academy, Class 883.
Of course, Dozay was there.
And he's there for a reason.
He is.
Beaming with pride.
He's there for you.
Yes.
Watching her childhood dream come to life.
Very emotional. I remember when I got sworn in. I'm just glad to be here and be able to share this experience with her. She's an incredible young lady.
From the Vancouver Police Department, Officer Reagan Cook.
There was just one final thing to make it all official.
I didn't think we could choose, so I sent him a text, and he was like, "Are you sure?" Typical Chuck, not really understanding how much he made an impact on my life. And I was like, of course. I didn't even have a second of doubt. I put your name on that paper immediately.
Officer Cook will be pinned by her friend, Washington County Deputy Chuck Dozay.
An honor given to the person who's important in your life. And with that final touch came one more piece of advice from Chuck.
I told her she earned this badge, and she'll have to earn it every day from now here on out.
A challenge Reagan seems ready to handle.
I'm excited now to be able to tell the stories. I've heard a lot of his stories. So to be able to return the favor and hopefully in a couple years take him on a ride along, I think that would be my goal.
That would be fun.
Devin Haskins reporting that fine story. Well, Reagan will spend the next few months learning the ropes with a training officer with Vancouver Police before she's out on her own on patrol. Well, that's the end of our show. Thanks a lot for watching. Timbers 360 is coming your way next. In the meantime, enjoy your weekend and the start of June. The Story team will see you right back here on Monday night at 6:30. Have a good night.